Hello and welcome to 108 with AJK. We are going through our 2026 Fantasy Baseball early rankings. We have already done catcher and first base, and today we'll be covering second base. Just a short note about the rest of the positions. We'll be doing shortstop and third base tomorrow and Friday, and then outfield will be next week, followed by pitching. That being said, let's move on to our second base list, starting with number 15, Bryson Stott. Bryson Stott does not hit the ball very hard, generally speaking, but he does run very fast, which has value in fantasy, especially in a categories league where stolen bases is a category, which it generally is. Bryson Stott, along with the other first couple of guys on this list, is really bad against lefties and probably should have a platoon partner if he's on your fantasy team, or at least a utility player you can plug into that position who is right-handed and can get some at-bats, because these guys should not be playing against lefties and probably will not be playing against lefties. Bryson Stott's slash line against lefties last year was 225, 287, 288, so very, very bad, very little power. Bryson Stott doesn't have a lot of power to begin with. He's going to be only in the teens probably in home runs, but he can chip in a lot of stolen bases and a decent batting average. So again, kind of needs a platoon partner, and that's why he is number 15 on this list. Number 14 is another guy who needs a platoon partner, and his name is Luis Garcia Jr. You're kind of hoping he helps you in average and maybe chips in some RBIs and steals. He hit 282 in 2024 and then just 252 last year. Now, he is another guy who needs a platoon partner, as I alluded to in discussing Stott. His slash line is even worse at 179, 224, 221. Yes, somehow his slugging is less than his on-base percentage. So again, another guy who needs a platoon partner, a right-handed bat to have on your roster, maybe a utility player you can plug in on days when Luis Garcia Jr. is facing a lefty, because he probably won't play, and if he does, he will not do well. Number 13 is yet another guy who could use a platoon partner, and it's Colt Keith. One thing Keith has over these first couple guys is positional flexibility. He should also be eligible at first and third. His slash line is even worse than the first two, however, against lefties at 163, 270, 217, 186 slugging against lefties. And having watched a lot of Tigers games myself, I can tell you he probably won't face a lot of lefties. AJ Hinch likes to play the matchups, and looking at the numbers of Colt Keith versus lefties, I wouldn't be playing him against lefties either. That being said, when he is in the lineup and he's facing right-handed hitters, he's a very good hitter. He will take some walks, although his on-base percentage could certainly be better. He can be a bit streaky, which can be good or bad depending on the side of the streak he's on, but he has had stretches where he looks very good, and if he can put it all together, he could have a good year, and he could end up a lot higher than 13th at the end of the year. Number 12 is Lenyn Sosa. He kind of broke out with 22 home runs last year, but the thing is, nobody really noticed because he plays on the White Sox. The good thing for him is he's not likely to lose playing time. They don't really have any better options, so he's going to be in the lineup, for better or for worse. The better is the 22 home runs and the 75 RBIs he had last year. But also, he does not walk, like, at all. He will not take walks. He had 18 walks in 518 at-bats last year. He was in the first percentile of walk percentage in the league. And also, he was in the third percentile of chase rate. So he certainly could stand to improve his plate discipline and his knowledge of the strike zone, but at just 26 years old next year, he could still be improving, so he could certainly build on that 22, 75 home run RBI totals and move up on this list. It's hard to say. He's still pretty young, but the metrics under the hood look pretty decent, and that's why I have him at number 12. Number 13, Nico Hoerner. Now, much like Bryson Stott, Nico Hoerner does not hit the ball hard, but he runs very fast. But he doesn't have the extreme platoon splits that Stott has, or Garcia, or Keith. He has quite a few stolen bases over the last few years and pretty good average, like he hit 297 last year. So in categories leagues, he can definitely do some good for you in average and steals. Probably not likely to get you much in the home run or RBI department. So kind of a later round pick if you don't have any better options. I certainly wouldn't be choosing him as my number one second baseman, but he does have some utility, especially in categories leagues. Number 10 is kind of the new kid on the block here, Luke Keaschall of the Twins. He was pretty impressive in limited MLB action last year. He hit .302 with 14 steals. He should have plenty of runway for playing time in Minnesota. They don't have a whole lot of, established major leaguers there. And Luke Keaschall is one of their bigger prospects. Looked real good last year. He'll just be 23 years old next year. He's a player I'm excited about to see what he can do. That being said, I have trouble ranking him any higher than 10 just because of his limited experience. Number 9, Jordan Westburg. Jordan Westburg is a guy I was pretty big on the last couple of years, but he kind of disappointed me both years, mostly due to an inability to stay on the field, but also just the results haven't really been great. He's had 18 and 17 home runs the last couple of years. He does seem like a guy who has 30 home run potential if he can stay healthy, but so far he's shown an inability to do that. So I find it difficult to invest too heavily in him. He does look like a good player. I would not be surprised if he had very good stats at the end of the year, but I can't rate him any higher than 9. He should still have third base eligibility too, which is another thing to note. Number 8, Brendan Donovan. Now, Brendan Donovan, he is not exactly an exciting choice. He's kind of just pretty good at everything, maybe not great at any one thing. He's not going to steal you many bases. Probably, a 50 to 75 RBI guy. Last few years, his batting average has been pretty steady, around 280. So you kind of know what you're getting. He does hit the ball hard, doesn't hit a ton of home runs, but he's kind of a good all-around hitter, kind of entering his prime years. Number 7, Gleyber Torres. Now, he did have sports hernia surgery after the season ended, which may have, it sounds like, impeded him for the second half of last year, which you can kind of see in the numbers. They kind of took a dive after the All-Star break. Assuming he's fully recovered from the surgery next year, I expect him to be pretty good. He looked good last year. He's kind of one of these guys who feels like a better real-life player than fantasy because he works the count and he grinds the pitchers down, and that stuff doesn't really show up in a fantasy, box score. But he's a guy you like to have on your real-life team. And from the second base position, he puts up decent offensive numbers for fantasy. So kind of a middle-of-the-road pick, which is kind of where you see him here at number 7 out of 15. He takes plenty of walks, a good threat for over 20 home runs, which you'll kind of take from second base. So, yeah, kind of a floor play with Gleyber. Number 6, Brandon Lowe of the Rays. Now, he might get traded, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. May impact his value somewhat. But either way, he's probably one of the bigger power threats at second base. He had 39 in 2021 and 31 last year. He is getting a little bit older. He's on the wrong side of 30 now, but he'll just be 31 next year, so probably not super concerned about that just yet. His numbers last year may have slightly been inflated because of the fact that the Rays were playing in a minor league park, and they'll be back at Tropicana Field next year. I don't know how much of an effect that will have on his numbers. He does have an excellent pull air percentage and has throughout his career, up in the mid-20s. So he's able to pull the ball down the line to those shorter porches, adding to his home run totals. He has missed sort of, significant time in the last few years with injury, but he was mostly healthy last year. And that kind of stuff is hard to predict, so I'm not really baking that into my model too much. But there is some injury risk, perhaps, with Brandon Lowe. But there he is, number 6. Number 5 is also a guy with some risk due to his age, and that's Jorge Polanco. He had a very good year last year. He is a free agent now, so again, that could impact his value depending on where he goes. He's another guy with excellent pull air percentage up in the high 20s, even the low 30s in 2021. Kind of a good all-around hitter. He can hit for average and power. I would say he's kind of not elite, but very good. And I currently have him ranked at number 5 at second base. Number 4 is Maikel Garcia, who I almost didn't include on this list because I forgot that he should have second base eligibility, although he's primarily a third baseman. I think at one point he had shortstop eligibility too, but I don't think that's the case anymore. He improved across the board in 2025. His strikeout percentage, his walk percentage, his ground ball percentage, all to the better. He was worth 5.8 WAR last year. I'm sure a lot of that was due to defense, but also base running. He stole 23 bases in 2025, 37 in 2024, so he's always a stolen base threat. He's just had trouble getting on base to this point, but this year he OPS 800 after being in the 600s a couple years before that. So I'm not sure if he changed his swing or if there were some mechanical adjustments that were made, but he really seems to have turned a corner last year. And I think a lot of people that were expecting him to be a force in fantasy the last couple of years have finally seen those thoughts come to fruition. So here he is at number 4. Number 3 is Brice Turang. Brice Turang had significantly less stolen bases last year than he had the previous year with 50 in 2024. He was down to 24 in 2025, but he significantly upped his home run potential. He hit 18 as opposed to 7 the year before. He strikes out more than you'd like, especially for somebody who doesn't hit a ton of home runs. And his pull air percentage still isn't good, but he's kind of a ceiling play in the sense that if he can continue these home run gains that he had in the second half last year, he could accrue a significant home run total for somebody who can also steal 50 bases. So you're kind of dreaming on the combination there by picking him this high. But he did have an excellent year last year. He was one of the top fantasy second basemen, and I think he's definitely going to be in the top 5 of fantasy second basemen next year. So even though he's maybe not an elite player, I think I said something on the first base list like anybody in the top 5 is probably an elite player. Maybe not so much the case with second base, but that being said, any of these guys in the top 5, you'd feel pretty good about having as your second baseman on your fantasy team just because of the lack of other options. One of the few good options is number 2, and that's Jazz Chisholm Jr. He had a career high in home runs last year with 31 playing in Yankee Stadium. Certainly helped him in that regard. It's very good for left-handed power hitters with that short right field porch. So Jazz Chisholm Jr. kind of offers the speed power combination that you don't get a lot in fantasy in general and second base in particular. So that kind of rockets him up to the top of this list, even though he does have, red flags as a player. He strikes out a lot, but he also walks some, and he keeps his OPS high enough to make it worthwhile. I think a lot of people even have him at number 1 on their lists, but I can't quite get there. He is often injured, which I fear may be the case again, and just looking at the data under the hood is just not as good as number 1 on this list, who is, drumroll please, I'm sure you can figure it out at this point, but it's Ketel Marte. Still the number 1 first baseman. Everything under the hood looks great. He's going to be 32 years old next year, so he's getting a little bit on the older side. Still looking very good all around the board. 28 home runs last year, down a little bit from 36 the year before. So it remains to be seen if that's just a statistical anomaly or if he's on the downswing. He is not really going to give you much in stolen bases, but he is, I would say, by far the best overall hitter in the second base class, and that's why I have him at number 1. That concludes our second base list. I hope you enjoyed. I do hope you will like and subscribe for future content. We'll have shortstop and third base lists on the way shortly, followed by outfield and pitching. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you down the road.